Good morning, students. We are going to study the chapter The Gore and the Giggling Ghost. Giggling, the word itself, says a lot. Giggling means laughing lightly and repeatedly in an excited or silly way. Usually, we giggle at something that, you know, amuses us. When you're trying to tease somebody or something amuses you, you giggle. Now, this chapter has an interesting title, isn't it? Giggling Ghost. The dictionary says that giggling is laughing repeatedly in an excited or silly way. Can you imagine a giggling ghost? A ghost usually screams or shrieks in order to scare people. But the one that Dr. Gore encountered in the chapter that we are going to read was one which giggled. Why do you think a ghost would giggle? Was it trying to tease the doctor or make fun of him? Let's find out by reading the short story written by Mala Marva. In the story, a doctor tries to outwit a ghost who giggles at him. As the story starts, we see that Dr. Golaknath Gore gets up to fetch water from the drinking fountain which is outside his room. And when he comes out, he hears someone giggling. He wonders who is giggling and looks around at everyone curiously to find out who it was. But however hard he tries, he is unable to find where the sound of giggling is coming from. He was unable to understand who was making this curious sound of kick, 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 just like a child giggling. In the next paragraph, the doctor is described as a plump, bald man, which means a fat man who has no hair on his head. Since he has been hearing the giggling of a ghost, it is a ghost because he cannot see where the sound is coming from, so he guesses it's a ghost. And for weeks he has been hearing this giggling sound. So now he is very bothered and he thought that he would go crazy because he was doing things like putting the thermometer in the patient's pocket instead of his mouth under his tongue. And even once he shook hands with the skeleton, thinking that it was a doctor from another department, which made him yell. Something crazy like this happened, he would always hear a sniggering. He was certain that it was the nosy ghost having a good laugh at him. One afternoon, an incident makes him very furious. It happened so that he was trying to check the file of a patient for which he had to climb a metal ladder to reach to the top of a cupboard where the file was kept. Now he missed a step and he landed on a swivel chair. A swivel chair, children, is a chair on which you can turn the seat around because the base moves. Now it happened that the files started raining down on him, flapping and squawking like birds. If this was not all, what happened next was that indelible ink, indelible, which is impossible to remove. Now that ink fell on his head. Now his lovely bald head was all covered with ink. And as Dr. Gore sat on his chair with the ink trickling into his ears and the sheets of paper and folders about him, he heard again. Now, Dr. Gore, who was normally a very kind man and wouldn't hurt anything, was extremely furious. Doctor ran out of the room shouting furiously. Everyone who saw his face was shocked. He shouted loudly that it was the poltergeist in this hospital and it was laughing at him. Dr. Gorey ran out of the room, shouting furiously. Everybody who saw his face was shocked. He shouted that there was a poltergeist. Now, what is a poltergeist, children? Poltergeist is a ghost which is believed to make loud noise and throw things about. Now, Dr. Gorey said that there was one such a ghost in the hospital and it was laughing, rather giggling at him. He promised that he would trap it and splatch it. Now everybody in the hospital started to talk about it. The whole hospital started buzzing with sounds of people who were talking and wondering what a poltergeist was and what kind of noise did it make and whether it was visible or not. To add to all this, the assistant came in and said that he had heard it when he was in the study of the doctor. It was indeed a giggling ghost, and Dr. Gorey was going to splatch it with his unparalleled power of a superantimetallopoltergisticis. Now, this was just a word that has been used by the writer to exaggerate and bring out humor here in the story. Now, all this worried the staff. And then Dr. Gorey shot out of his room again. Shot here means he rushed out of his room again. Now, some of the ink had come off on his cuffs, and he looked like a used blotting paper. As you know, the ink was on his cuff, and some had come off. He had a round piece of glass in his hand with a string attached to it. It looked like a disc which is used by the hypnotists to hypnotize people. He announced that he was going to catch the ghost with it. He announced loudly that with this modern device, I shall devastate the little devil, confuse him utterly, and I would immobilize him. Immobilize here means stopping somebody from moving. So he thought that he would stop the ghost from giggling at him. Saying this, the doctor walked absent-mindedly back to his room. Once inside, he realized that he had come back, so he decided to go out in the corridor again. But for some queer reason, he did not use the door that was open for the purpose. Instead, he turned towards the closed door on the other side and proceeded to open it.